In today's lesson, we're going to have a little guided practice. Our practice is going to be for preparation for tomorrow's quiz. So when we looked at our last couple of lessons, we started talking about real numbers. And I'm just focusing on integers at this point, and we're going to talk about opposites, absolute value, comparisons, addition, and subtraction of integers. Okay, so let's get started. Find the absolute value. We know absolute value is a number's distance from zero. So we're going to think about how many spaces -4 is from the origin, and absolute value is always positive. How far is 6 from the origin or 0? 6 spaces. In the third one, we're looking at this negative on the outside, which says the opposite of the absolute value. Well, if the absolute value of 3 is 3, the opposite of 3 is -3. In my next problem, I need to do some simplifying first. I need to subtract. Remember that when we're subtracting, we add the opposite, so this becomes 6 plus a -8, which then gives me the absolute value of -2, which equals 2. Sometimes you have to do a little simplifying before you can give the absolute value. The next topic is really easy, opposites. Opposites are the same distance but on the reverse side of the origin. So the opposite of 6 is -6, and the opposite of -10 is just 10. On to comparisons. Comparisons, something could be compared with a less than symbol, a greater than symbol, or even an equal to symbol. When I think about 9 and comparing it to -4, 9 is greater than -4. When I think about -8 and -2, sometimes people need to see a visual. Well, if I'm thinking of my numbers on a number line, and this is my origin, and this is -2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, -8 is down here. We see that as we go to the left, the numbers get less. So -8 is less than -2. In my last one, I'm going to do some comparisons, but this time I'm looking at absolute values. I need to evaluate first. The absolute value of 4 is 4, and the absolute value of -4 is also 4. These two expressions are equal or equivalent. On to our next topic. Our next topic was graphing on a number line. To graph points on a number line, it's a solid dot at that interval. So if I want to graph 4, I find 4 and put a solid dot at 4. Graphing -2, solid circle or dot at -2. 1, find that interval on my number line, -5, and 0. Now that I have graphed each of these points, it makes it very easy for me to write them in order. Order them from least to greatest. -5, -2, 0, 1, and 4. So we spent some time just getting familiar with real numbers, the positives and the negatives, talking about some of their relationships in regards to absolute value and opposites, and how to graph and number them and order them. Then we moved on to addition and subtraction of real numbers. We know that when the signs are unlike, we subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. Always look at your operation symbol. Again, I have another addition. With unlike signs, I will subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. Number 3 tells me that the signs are the same, and when the signs are the same, I'm just going to add and keep the sign. In number 4, I am looking at additive inverses. Any number plus its additive inverse will be 0. And we've practiced that one quite a bit. On to subtraction. When I'm subtracting, the rule says to add the opposite. I have 9 plus a -16. Because the signs are unlike, I'm going to subtract and get a -7. In my next one, once again, I have a subtraction. Subtraction tells me to add the opposite. I now have two of the same signs, so I just add and keep the sign. Then we got into the ones that had more than one sign, so that operation. I could, if I wanted to, rewrite this so that the signs are, like signs are together, and then I can go from -10 plus 8, and that would give me a -2, or you can use your left to right rule. We also looked at problems that had more than one subtraction operation. I could have a -5 minus 6 minus a -8. When we're going to do this, some of you suggested we break this down into two parts, which we could easily do. I could have -5 plus a -6, and that will give me -11. Then I bring down the rest of the problem, and I have -11, add the opposite, and my final answer will be -3. And that's really all that we're going to be covering on this quiz. We'll do additional problems in class, and if you have questions, we'll clarify them during the session. I'll see you in class.